Finals of the comedians over the board between Biswa Kalyan Rath and Samay Raina. Arch rivals opens with e4. Biswa Kalyan Rath, d5 by Samay, the Scandinavian. He brings his queen out in the opening. Samay has been trusting this opening in the comedians over the board. Knight to f3, develops his bishop, pins the knight. Biswa just breaks the pin, also develops his bishop. The knight comes out on c6, white castles and black long castles. We are in for a treat as we have the opposite side castling on the board. Biswa now takes his time. It's 10 minutes plus 2 seconds increment. He places knight to c3. The finals has 2 games of 10 plus 2 and this is the first game. Queen d7 played. And now Biswa goes a4. His point is, because the king is on c8, he may want to push the pawn and gain some space on the queen side. Samay does not care for it. He goes knight f6, which is a good move in the position. And now Biswa has to decide how to continue. He goes bishop b5. Generally, it's not a good idea to move the same piece twice in the opening. Also, this pin has been renewed. So Samay plays a6 and asks a question to Biswa's bishop. Where are you moving? Are you going to go back? Why did you come to b5? And Biswa thinks for quite some time and takes on c6. Queen takes c6 and now it's important to go knight e5. If you don't play that, then black has the bishop pair and clearly a favorable position. Biswa, you can see there, is calculating with his hands and finds the move knight e5. Brilliant job there done by him. Look at Samay's time. He has 8 minutes and now he's down to 6 minutes. So he thought for a total down to 5 minutes. 3 minutes he's thought for queen e6. He must go and defend the bishop, but he actually takes on d1. And now Biswa captures the queen, attacking the rook. So the knight must be taken. And now b takes c6. And Biswa must take the bishop back. He takes rook d1 and this position is a small edge for white because black's pawn structure on the queen side, if you look here, has been ruined. But Samay goes e6, developing his bishop. For now, Biswa has 2 extra minutes on the clock and also a small little edge. He plays his pawn to d3. It's also a positional game. Samay really prefers aggressive positions, so that also is in Biswa's favor. Bishop c5, good move by Samay, developing his bishops, connecting his rooks. For Biswa, it's quite a complicated position to try to figure out how is he going to take advantage of these mangled pawns. How does he attack them? For now, Samay goes bishop d4. He not only protects his knight but also puts pressure on c3. Now Biswa may want to move his knight to e4 but does not like the fact that his pawn would be hanging. He now chops off the knight, which is perhaps not the best idea, but it's not bad as well. Bishop takes f6 played on the board. Now the knight wants to move but b2 is hanging, so Biswa first goes rook b1, defending this pawn. Now this next idea could be to play knight e4 and play with the knight against the bishop, but Samay says, no Biswa, you can't really do that because now I'm taking your knight and we are going into a rook endgame. Guys, rook endgames are the most tricky sort of endgames and even the greatest chess players in the world haven't been able to master these endgames. So rook goes to b7 on the 7th rank. Rook b8, Samay offers a trade of rooks. Biswa says, I'm going to get my other rook on the 7th rank. The rooks are traded. White's rook comes in. White is clearly pushing here. Samay goes rook a8 because he wants to go king c8 and remove this rook from here. And he doesn't want the rook to go and attack his a6 pawn. That's why he first goes rook a8, a5. Fantastic move by Biswa. fixing the pawn on a6. Now instead of king c8, Samay thinks that he can play c5. Again a good move, because now you want to go king c6 and attack king f1, bringing the king in. That's always a good idea in the endgame. King c6, attacking the rook. The rook has to come back. Biswa brings it back to b3. He's 3 minutes ahead on clock. Samay has a fantastic move here of a pawn sack to give this and triple the pawn so that his king can come in and attack. But instead, he goes e5. He just pushes his pawn. Now white must go c4 and just block these pawns here. But instead, Biswa wants to bring his king up. Does he want to? No, he sacrifices a pawn. What sort of a move is that? If black simply takes here twice, he will be a pawn up. His king will also come in. His c pawn will move up. That seems like a completely lost position for white. But Samay is a bit curious. You know, he's like, why did Biswa give up the pawn? He thinks a bit, takes on d4, first takes the pawn, cd, and now he must take the other pawn. And then Biswa has to then grovel for a draw because he would be simply a pawn up. But Samay thinks, takes his time. He's already thought for more than 10 seconds. Is he going to take the pawn? No! He's going to push the pawn. Unbelievable! A clear case of mutual blindness here. Pawn comes to c4. Attacking the rook on b3. Biswa comes back. Rook comes to the b2 square. And now black. Is he going to move his king up? Yes, he plays king to d5. c3, defending his pawn on d4. The position currently is equal. c5 played on the board. Slightly risky because now when the rook comes to the 7th rank, all the pawns are a bit exposed. For now, Samay wants to create a passer with c takes d4. So Biswa takes the pawn, king takes pawn. One thing that is clearly in white's favor is that his king is very active, but his rook is slightly passive, and white should now enter with his rook on b7. That's exactly what Biswa does. Getting the 7th rank for his rook is a good idea, and Biswa is not missing that. Now Samay should defend his f pawn with rook f8, but he goes g6. That is just not at all a good move. He can take the pawn now. Rook takes f7, but Biswa thinks he has 3 extra minutes on the clock. Samay has 1 minute 42 seconds, but king e2. He does not take it. Rook to e8. Developing the rook with a tempo. Rook e8 check. The king must move now. King goes to f3. And Samay is not a player who likes to defend. So he's going to go active. But how? He touches his rook, he puts it on e1. Excellent move. The rook is now wanting to come from c1 and start attacking these weakened pawns on c3 and a5. Biswa goes rook b6. Biswa says, I'm not interested in the f7 pawn. The real battle is on the queen side. So he goes there, rook c1. Good move by Samay, attacking the c3 pawn. Slowly, black is taking over the initiative because not only is he going to win this pawn, he will also have an active king. Rook takes a6, rook c3 check. Now important to bring your king back so that the king can be used in the defense of the position. However, he goes king to e4. He goes with his king up. Maybe a good idea is to push f5 with a check. But Samay now goes rook a3, which is also a fine move. He puts pressure on a5. White has to decide how does he proceed, and Biswa goes rook a7. Good move, attacking the f7 pawn. It's time to start pushing your c pawn. No, first a check. Good idea. King e5. Trying to get in seems like a possibility. For now, the position is equal, but it's not drawn at all because there's still everything to play for. Rook king b5 played is a good move. And now maybe you want to take the pawn on h7. It is a possibility, but Biswa goes king d5. That's a blunder because now rook d3 check, king e5 and c3 gives black a winning position. He must find rook d3 check, cutting the king off. But can Samay find this move? No, he pushes the pawn to c3. A very important moment now in the game, and Biswa goes rook c7. Fantastic move. If king takes, then there is a check, king b4, check, king a4 is a blunder because of king c4. So he takes with the rook, but now Biswa takes the pawn as well. This is a kind of a drawish position, but I do not like the fact that the black king is cut off here by the rook. King d4, king b4, a check, and the rook is hanging. Is white losing? Is Biswa losing the game? 2 minutes he has on the clock, and look at Samay's time. He has only 15 seconds. King d4. Good move by Samay, protecting his rook. Down to 10 seconds, only 2 seconds increment per move. So he needs to start moving quickly. Goes rook to a7, defending his h7 pawn. And now Biswa gives a check first, pushes the king back. I think a good idea is to just come back with his rook on c2, keep the king cut off, defend all his pawns on the second rank. And is he going to do that? Yes, he comes back. Rook to c2. And now Samay plays rook d7. Actually, king e5 would have been better, but he goes king e3. Now you can see the black king is not able to enter, but Biswa gives a check and allows the king to come in. That was not a good idea. You had to keep the king cut off. Check, rook e7. But now the king is going to move up once again on the board. King f3. g5 played. 6 seconds only for Samay, and you can see how Biswa is managing his time admirably. Earlier, whenever he would play Samay, he would get under time pressure, but now he's the one putting pressure on Samay. King to d2. Samay trying to come in with his king. Rook c5. Brilliant move played by Biswa. h6. And now it's time to play h4. But he gives a check. Now Samay must go king e1 and go inside, but he goes king c3. This allows white to get a huge advantage because now the rook is passive. The white rook is active. White king can start marching up the board in this fashion. Yes, Biswa gets his king in. h5 played, trying to get counterplay in the position. But Biswa keeps it all under control. Yes, h3. Fantastic move. Takes. And now even though the material has been sort of reduced in the position, you will see that the white king is all ready to come to f5. But he goes rook e2 check. He had to go rook b2 and rook b5. Defend from that side. But Samay is going after the f3 pawn. But he's going to win this pawn. Biswa is going to win the other pawn. Now rook here. If you take the pawn, you're going to lose the rook. So that's a very tricky move. King d4 played. Time to give a check. Yes, a good move. Rook a4. Maybe the best move in the position. King d5, and here's the point. You're going to take the g5 pawn with your king and the f4 pawn with your rook. Samay down to 4 seconds. Biswa still has a 50 seconds on the clock, and now rook takes f4. It's important not to take the rook, but even the rook endgame is lost, but Samay takes it. King takes. Notice that these are the key squares for the pawn. King goes back. Now don't push the pawn because then it's a drawn position. Biswa needs to come in with his king and go to h6. He knows his endgames. He knows his pawn endgames. King h6 is a must now. Yes, he finds that move as well. Fantastic chess by Biswa Kalyan Rath. And now also takes the opposition. What level of chess are we seeing at COTB? Biswa has studied his endgames and he's now showing it in a high crunch encounter in the finals of the COTB. He's calculating it all with his seconds, with just 25 seconds on his clock. He's seeing, should he push the pawn, should he move his king? G5 played, king g8, and now just king h6 or king f6. Both are sufficient for a win. But important now, Samay can go king h7 and make it very tricky for Biswa to win. But he goes king f8, and that is the final mistake, because now Biswa goes king h6 played on the board. He could have even pushed the pawn, king h6, and now the pawn comes up. And after g7, it is a lost position, because the moment Samay comes up, king comes to h7, and Samay can't believe he's lost the position there. He goes king f7, king h7 with 14 seconds to go. Samay resigns. Biswa has won. What an end game we have had. Fantastic play by both the players, but Biswa showing that final bit of chess that helped him win the first game of the finals.